Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda with Women Who Rock, and today we have New York City-based Billboard charting alt pop artist and multi-instrumentalist Rachael Sage, who we're going to be collaborating with on a very special show coming up on Saturday, February 8th with Attack Theater. Rachael, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love everything about your organization and what you do, and it is just an honor and a pleasure. So thanks
Thank
for
you so
having me.
much. And I know you're on the road. You're joining us from your hotel room in Los Angeles. So you're out there to help with a benefit concert, right? For some of the fire relief.
Yes, that's right. It was a couple nights ago now. I flew in, I hit the ground running. I was a little nervous to come out here, of course, because of all of the continuing fires that haven't been completely contained, but the situation had improved to the point where I was able to do it. And I'm so grateful that we could all come together in support of this community and fire relief.
That's fantastic. Wonderful work to help. And, I think that's the one powerful thing that the music community out there seems to really be uniting here over these past couple days and weeks.
Oh,
So,
definitely.
yeah, really important work. Let's talk a little bit about you have a very robust career that has a lot of different arms to it, a lot of different projects. Like I mentioned, you are multi-instrumentalist, you incorporate dance, so many elements to what you do. But what really inspired you to start this career as a musician?
I think I was one of those introverted extroverts. And from the get-go, as soon as I could play piano with one hand, tapping the melody out, maybe another finger on the left hand,
Mm,
I recognized that there was this power that music had to not only pull people in who might not otherwise want to engage, but also to be this amazing kind of safe conduit for emotions that you couldn't express in your everyday life. So
mm.
for me, it started very young. I think I came home from nursery school or kindergarten and was just playing. And then my mother had the good sense to bring her young musical daughter to a Broadway show.
Ah, wonderful.
Came home and played Oklahoma by ear on the piano. So they kind of knew then that they had, someone interesting on their hands that they should maybe, encourage and just see where it went.
Let's talk about music acting as a safe space because at Women Who Rock, that is part of what we do with our brand and this platform to support women in music and to really make them feel safe because it doesn't feel safe all the time in the industry for
Right.
women. So I want to know a little bit about some of your past experiences being a woman in the industry. What challenges have you faced, and how are you also using your art to create safe spaces?
I'm going to just start with a little anecdote because when I was in college, like so many other young women, I had some very traumatic experiences. I was sexually assaulted, unfortunately. It's a very common statistic.
Mhm.
And I discovered an incredibly encouraging, communal, creative environment on campus, and it was called the Women's Performance Collective.
Wow.
And
Okay.
this other young woman had started it. I saw the flyer on like a telephone pole, and I just, I knew that was for me.
Mhm.
So I showed up, and instantly I felt at home. I felt comfortable with other women who were very openly expressing things that had happened to them or challenges with body imagery, women's health, all these different women's issues. And half of the members were taking feminist studies and others had just kind of wandered into it like me.
Yeah.
And I just kind of absorbed all of that and recognized very quickly the power of other women in community in an artistic space. So ever since then, I've really tried to foster those kinds of spaces. I founded my own record label, Empress, in 1996. So we're coming up on our 30th anniversary.
Congratulations.
And thank you. It's been a real adventure and many highs and lows, but extremely empowering. And you hinted at it in your intro to this topic, but the music industry itself, traditionally through the years, has been perhaps not so encouraging to women in particular spaces and in places of business where it's been primarily the male voice that's been heard. So I really felt like I had to just empower myself, and I joined communities like Indie Girl, Women in Music.
Mhm.
I started an artist salon that was called Urban Muse in the 90s. And it was a group of women. We would gather every week and bring a topic, and we'd write a song about it, and we'd share feelings about that week in the music industry and ways that we could support each other. So all of these things were so crucial and so influential on me. I think we have a lot in common.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Why was it important to you to start your own record label? Because the business side of the industry, a lot of times the creatives like to kind of keep those things separate, right? Keep your brain on one side of the creativity and the performance.
Mhm.
And the business side, a lot of times I hear from artists, don't always mix. But it sounds like
Yeah.
it's very important to you to start your own label.
Oh,
Why?
yeah, definitely. Ironically, I think when you pass the reins to someone else
Hmm,
in a huge area, like the business of your music, in the long run, you end up spending maybe equal or more brain power and focus and tending to mistakes that are made that aren't your own,
sure.
or lawyers that you have to hire to get you out of situations, to extricate from unsafe or, toxic relationships that might occur, whether it's with someone who wasn't quite the right match in the studio producing you, or a business partner who just didn't adhere to the contract. I've been doing this a very long time. I was making demos and I had production deals in my teens, even going into college. I won a handful of contests that introduced me to some very powerful people in the industry who kind of promised the moon and either didn't deliver or just kind of took the money and ran. So
Sure.
I think I already had like a good 5 to 10 years experience by my early 20s
Mhm.
because I'd really been putting my music out there proactively since I was a teenager. So I think I knew too much. It was like the curtain had been drawn and I
Uh,
thought, I can do this.
right.
And not only can I do it, but I think I can do it in a way that allows me to self-develop artistically, which was the most important thing to me, rather than being told, I love your music, but
But,
we need to overhaul
right?
your look. Or I
Exactly.
love your songwriting, but you should really sing like so and so. I love your band, but really you need a new band. And that feedback was so continual from the moment I stepped into my own as an artist that I just thought, you know what? Let me give this a go, roll up my sleeves and see how far I can take it. And I suppose it became a little bit of a challenge to just keep it going and widen the scope of it and also be able to release music by other artists, which is
Yeah,
something I've done quite a bit.
that's fantastic. And you have a new acoustic album that you released. I'm guessing that's on your label. Which number of albums is that for you?
It's my 16th album. I don't know how that happened.
That's incredible. Why acoustic for this album?
Well, I released a version of these songs called The Other Side last year, and I toured all over the place, especially in England. I went overseas a handful of times, did a number of tours supporting larger artists, playing big, beautiful venues. And then I came off of that and still wanted to keep touring, and I wasn't ready to make another album. And I had seen one of my very favorite artists in the world, Fantastic Negrito. I highly recommend him. He's just so funky and such a beautiful musician. He did a reimagining of his album. He didn't call it acoustic, it was reimagined. And so that's what I decided to do, that I was going to just take these same songs, completely reimagine the accompaniment, inspired by the touring and the traveling that I'd done, some of the instrumentation that I developed with my violinist, Kelly Halloran, who's brilliant. So that's where we started. But it didn't really have any rules about having to be acoustic guitar or anything like that. So I was able to pull from a wide range of instrumentation and then also have a lot of special guests in the Hudson Valley where I mostly live now. It was wonderful. It was a great experience. I highly recommend it. If someone labors over an album for a year or more and then you kind of let it go a year later, they're going to come out completely different and with just a very fresh approach.
And will we hear some of these songs at Attack Theater?
Absolutely. I think about a third of the repertoire we'll be doing will be from Another Side. And if I may be so bold, we'll also be debuting a handful of songs from my next record, which is called Canopy. So that'll be fun.
Can't wait. Well, Women Who Rock can't wait to collab on this show with you and Attack Theater. We love all the folks at Attack Theater, and we will be on site that night, raising awareness for what we do for supporting women in music and raising awareness for the state of women's health research. We'll have our pop-up there as well, but really pausing on women's health and women's health research, which is still grossly understudied and underfunded to this day. We
Yes,
really
yeah.
use music to help amplify that message and to help make a change for that. But you were
Mhm.
affected very personally by women's health in
Yes.
2018 when you were diagnosed with cancer. How does that stop your world? And how do you then take a deep breath and use your art and use your music for healing and empowerment? And you've done so much great work to raise awareness and to raise funds for causes related to women's health. How do you do that? Because that's a very challenging time to get through.
Thank you for bringing that up. I always like to take any opportunity to be open, transparent about my experience. As you suggested, it absolutely did stop everything. I had a very spontaneous diagnosis. I wasn't going in to be checked for any symptoms. It was just a regular women's health checkup. And I want to also mention that it was Planned Parenthood who discovered the abnormality in my pap test and then recommended I see another gynecologist. So they really saved my life. And I always want to underline that because they do a lot of things, not just one thing. And I think sometimes people forget that. They were kind and they persisted trying to get a hold of me until they could help guide me through this. So I did receive a diagnosis for endometrial cancer, which is a type of uterine cancer. And it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I remember sitting with this news for a day or two before I even shared it with my family. But I did tell my best friend. So it's always important to have that one person you can really lean on. And we got through it together. Do not underestimate your bestie in times of
So
crisis.
true.
And I think I just kind of rolled up my sleeves and approached it sort of like the CEO that I am. I became as educated as quickly as possible. I did go down the Google rabbit hole and kind of played out those scary scenarios. But
Mm.
foremost, I made sure I had a second opinion. And when it was the same thing, I just moved forward and I found a wonderful surgeon I like to mention at Mass General, a wonderful woman named Marcela Del Carmen. And she was not the first surgeon who I went to. The first one I went to, I didn't get a great feeling. So I like to say this too, just to encourage everyone to be their own health advocate and to
Absolutely.
go with your intuition. These
Yeah.
are very, very personal decisions you may make at some point in your life or a loved one or friend. And I think as women, we have a tendency sometimes to feel like we should or we have to, and to kind of squash that inner voice, that inner intuition. So my music now is all about following it. We get better, we get well, so we can live, resume our lives. And once I got through that very challenging experience, I really did feel like all I wanted to do was just get back to it. So
Yeah.
I think now it's about gratitude and about sharing that light that I have with other women and other listeners and using all the different parts of myself and not quieting any of them down. So that's kind of my mission at this point.
Thank you for sharing that. And you touched on so many important things there that yearly checkups, sometimes we get, of course, as women, too busy or we're taking care of everybody else but
Yes,
ourselves. But
exactly.
yearly checkups and advocating for ourselves. And like you said, the second opinion, sometimes it's a third, sometimes it's a fourth
Yeah.
opinion, but we do have the superpower of such a strong intuition. And my gut has never led me wrong in my life. And I think
Mhm.
that that is such an important part, what you shared for women to really resonate with. And, a lot of these women's focused cancers, like you mentioned, are on the rise in young women right now.
Yeah.
So this can really hit you at any stage in your life. And those yearly checkups are so important. What other advocacy? It sounds like you've worked with a lot of different organizations. Can you touch upon
Yes.
any of that?
Absolutely. The Foundation for Women's Cancer is a wonderful organization. They use their resources resources to research at the forefront of several women's cancers. I don't think they explore breast cancer because there are so many dedicated organizations to that, but ovarian and uterine, vaginal cancers, all different cancers that affect women. And I think my own surgeon, when I mentioned it, she was like, "Oh, they're wonderful. I'm a member," so they're really pooling resources from all over the country. I also have fundraised quite a bit for Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is the hospital where I received some of my treatment, my radiation and chemotherapy. And they have an amazing support system at this hospital. And I know that it's not the same everywhere around the country. And I was so grateful to have not only, the Western style medicine all the way, which is great in times of crisis, but what it's not so great at is maybe before or after, the emotional side of things or just mental health therapy, things like acupuncture. So, they do offer those modalities somewhat, but I always want to earmark my donations to go to those because I think that's a lot of what kind of got me through that experience. Things like yoga for cancer, which was just so wonderful and a place where I could go and meet other women who are going through something. And without saying a word,
Mm.
there's this beautiful solidarity across all age groups, and you're there to heal and to quietly acknowledge that you're doing something positive for yourself and in community. So I'm a hippie that way. I really want to, kind of take away these taboos and cynicism about different modalities, different types of medicine that can support, mainstream Western medicine as well.
Because we're women who rock, I always like to ask our guests who are some
Sure.
of the top women who rock as an artist that inspired
Oh, I love this question.
you.
I'm out here in LA, so, Carole King springs to mind. She was the first singer-songwriter who I looked at and saw myself and said, wow, maybe I can do that. A nice Jewish girl, I can write some songs. Maybe some people will sing them. Maybe I'll sing them myself. I'm at the piano. And then later on, when I picked up the guitar, I was gravitating toward artists like Ani DeFranco and Lorena McKennitt, a lot of Irish artists, Sinead O'Connor. I've always loved the women who really had something to say and a story to tell that was unique. Maria McKee is another LA-based artist from Lone Justice. Love her. But yeah, so many women. I mean, I was part of Lilith Fair, so obviously everyone from Fiona Apple to Sarah McLachlan, Suzanne Vega, Indigo Girls, so
Love it.
many.
Love it. Well, that's the goal for Women Who Rock. We're going to bring back Lilith Fair.
Hell yes. Love that. Count me in.
All right, you're in. You're in our mission. Well, we can't wait. Again, everybody, please grab your tickets. Rachael Sage will be in Pittsburgh at TAC Theater on Saturday, February 8th. We have a link in our IG bio, Official Women Who Rock, to get tickets. The Women Who Rock pop-up will be on site. Rachel, can you give us just a little sneak preview? I know you mentioned some of the new music that you'll be
Yeah.
performing, but is there anything else that you can share with us, what we can expect at this
Oh,
show?
absolutely. Well, front and center is my partner in all things artistic, Dave Egar, and his spirit is just so brilliant. And so we've been playing together about 20 years now. We're going to be performing material across at least a dozen of my albums. And then my wonderful fiddle player, Kelly Halloran, will be joining us. So it's kind of a chamber pop rock situation with a lot of storytelling and even some movement from me. I do a little shake a tail feather. And of course, any chance to accompany dancers as in attack theater is so wonderful because I was a ballerina. I went to School of American Ballet. So that's part of my background. And I had a bunch of songs in the TV show Dance Moms. So we'll throw a few of those in as well. It's going to be a lot of fun.
We can't wait. Everybody, get your tickets. Attack Theater, February 8th with Rachael Sage, and we'll see you there. Rachel, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to connect with Women Who Rock today. Be safe in LA, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.